All right. Sorry, I think something went horribly wrong with my audio. I'm just seeing that you were having challenges hearing me on YouTube, on Facebook, perhaps as well. Please, if you are still there, kindly confirm that you can hear. For your sake, I would back up and start, again. I will back up and try and recap myself. And so thought that perhaps you were hearing what I was saying. I got the chat now to discover that um, you were not. So permit me to go back and start, all over. Sorry about that. I would extend the time also so that you can fully benefit as intended. Okay, so I today is day 9, and today we are focusing on supernatural living. We're focusing on supernatural living or spiritual development. I said that in for this session and for this program, I have used the word spiritual development, supernatural living. I have used them interchangeably. Okay. And we are today on module 8, which is supernatural living. How did we get to module 8? What the way we started was that at the opening session, I provided a summary, and that summary was basically to tell us how we were going to proceed over the course of the 10 days, and that the first session, which was the opening session, will establish why should we look at parables, what can they do for us, how come they can be seen as a resource for powering our growth, our success aspirations in life. And we will also review the parables, the bank of parables, and establish certain principles. And then after we did that on the first day, we will go every other day. We will focus on 9 priority areas that you and I have in life. And those areas, are in the order that we have treated them, and we've been focusing on each area per day. So in the second day, we focused on the first of the 9 priority areas, which was career growth. The second was business growth. The third was exemplary leadership. The fourth was relationship building. The fifth was managing our finances. The third was managing our investments. And the seventh, I believe, sorry, the sixth was managing finances. The seventh was character development. The eighth is what we're treating today. That's why today is module 8. And that's spiritual development or supernatural living. And tomorrow will be, closing with the 9th priority area, which is healthy living, So today our focus is on supernatural living. Our focus is on supernatural living, and the way we have done it for each of the days, focusing on the priority areas, is that we have simply used a sample of parables to express, to show how the parables can be taken advantage of, how they are relevant to, how it is that it's important that we look at them for gaining advantage, all right, in each of the priority areas. Okay, that's what we have done. So today we are following the same approach. Today I'll be walking you through the a couple of parables and showing you how to operate at the level of the supernatural, using what those parables contain. Using what those parables contain. All right. So the so I thought to start today by reminding you of some of the things that I said on the first day about parables, and making a very strong point from the onset, even before we use a sample of the parables to illustrate how they empower you to live a supernatural life. And so come with me. If you recall, we did give the definition of parables and said they are stories that teach core principles of life, drawing on practical aspects of day-to-day living that you and I can easily relate to and comprehend. We said that the parables are expressions of the core life principles hidden in mere stories. That stories are just a vehicle for, expressing core principles of life. So don't get carried away with the stories. Don't preoccupy yourself with the stories. Dig deeper into the stories with the intention of unveiling the principles that are hidden in them. And every parable has at least one principle hidden in it. Every parable. So to that extent, the parables are not normal stories. The stories were to help us to be able to relate to them, to be able to interest us in what they carry, to make it less esoteric, if you like, to motivate us to seek an understanding of what they carry. And we said that there is what I call the parables bank, which is the collection of the 38 parables that Jesus spoke. That's the common agreement, that there are 38 parables that he spoke, and I listed them, after this slide. But what is peculiar to them is a must that we know them. We must know them. We must know them. It's not something that you can decide to learn or not to learn. No, because Jesus said it. He said to his people when he spoke the parable of the sower, and they ran after him, saying, "Sir, can you please explain to us this parable?" And he said, "If you don't know this parable, how will you know all other parables? How will you know all other parables?" Meaning that this parable is important. Every parable I speak after is important, because at that point he had only spoken one. And thank God that those guys were smart enough to go to him later in the day to say, "Sir, can you explain that parable to us?" So they had the opportunity of being primed for all the other parables he was going to speak, so that they would pay attention. And every time he spoke a parable, the antennas were going to be at alert. They would never allow a parable to pass without them seeking to understand it. Why? Because he has told them. You need to understand that parable and all the others. I mean, why would he be concerned about them understanding all other parables if it wasn't important that they understood that? So it's not optional. You can choose, of course, not to pay attention to it, as many of us have done till date. All right? But it will be to your own detriment. And I believe that many of us have suffered a great deal. Situations that we would have, triumphed over, we would have been victorious over. Circumstances that we would never have bothered about. They have floored us because we lack the parables, an understanding of the principles to handle those situations. All right? The principles were hidden in parables. Okay, so it's a must for us to know the parables. All parables are important. All parables are empowering. Some parables are foundational. If you don't know them, don't attempt to try and know the others. Why? Because the parables derive relevance from the foundational parable. And if you have been with us on this journey over the last 8 days, you would have seen the connection between many parables. You would have seen. You would have also seen how we have used the different parables to explain more than one thing. You would have seen, for example, that there is a parable that almost comes in every time you are trying to explain something. So it tells you of the nature of parables. They are not static. They have relevance individually, but they are also connected. There's a dynamism in the system of these parables that you would only appreciate if you care to pay attention to that. If you care to pay attention to that. So some parables are foundational, some parables are building blocks. And the parables are not mutually exclusive. All right? Meaning that the fact that one happens will not invalidate another one. No. There is no such relationship between the parables. Each parable is a bona fide principle that works. That works. It may be explained by another parable, but it works. You can get better results by understanding other parables, but a parable works. Parables are mutually reinforcing. We have seen that again and again in the last 8 days. And you may see it again today. And life situations require a combo of parables. All right, for you to stay on top of your game. For you to stay on top of your game. Life situations require engaging a combination of principles, and that is a combination of parables. So we identified the various parables. We identified the various parables, in the list, and you can see that is, a first set of parables there. Sorry, I'm trying to change. All right, so another set there, 11, the parable of the prodigal son. Another set, you see many parables, 38 of them. Now, we made this note also that all the empowerment that you need to develop, to grow, to pursue, and to attain your goals in life, they are hidden in these parables. They're hidden in these parables. One or a combination of insights offered by these parables is sufficient to give you direction on how to handle any issue in life. One or a combination of them. And I hope that those who have been present have seen that. And if you haven't been present, at the various, over the last 8 days, please go to my YouTube channel and access the recording there. You can follow this mini adventure just by visiting my YouTube channel and take, day after day. They are all duly uploaded there. They are all duly uploaded there. Take advantage of it. So the point is that parables are given to enable us live a supernatural life. That's why they were spoken. That's why they were spoken. They were vehicles for empowering supernatural living on our part. Why? Because they put into our hands the principles that govern life. And the principles that govern the system of the world are not natural principles, they are supernatural principles. As long as the earth remains, seed time and harvest shall not cease. That's what we were told. And we have seen it. Seed time and harvest is still working till now. It's going to work tomorrow. It will work for as long as this earth remains. Seed time and harvest is a foundation principle for the world to run. The day that that principle ceases to operate, the world comes to an end. A lot will collapse, if not everything. All right? And that, of course, is not just a natural principle. It's not just a natural principle. It's a supernatural principle that governs the natural sphere of life. So when you engage it, you are not living a supernatural life. You are living on the earth. You are living in the natural realm, but you are living a supernatural lifestyle. That's why they empower you to dominate in the natural. There is no way for you to truly understand the parable of the sower and not get the result you desire every time in anything that you do. If you truly have that understanding and you believe and you act on the basis of the insights that that principle puts into your hands, you will get results. You will get results. There is no question about it. It's not because I say so. It is because the principle works. There are people today who are operating in the agriculture sector who have mastered the seed to fruit process, that they are not guessing whether they are going to have harvest or not. No. If you look at the Israelis in particular, and I recall that when I, had some investment, I had a foray into, agric, I owned a farm and all of that. I came to understand that they had advanced to the point where they, from the seed, from the ground into which they put their seed, and the quality of the seed they put in the ground, and the system they put in place to nurture the seed from the planting stage until they get harvest, they are clear about what kind of harvest they are going to get. They know the kind of yield that they will get. And they can tinker with the process in order to achieve whatever kind of yield that they want. That's because they have a very deep understanding of the same process. They are not using any principle that is contrary to the parable of the sower. They are using the same principle, but they have taken it to a level where they understand it deeply. And so every time seed hits the ground, they know that harvest is sure. They have booked a date for harvest. Once the seed hits the ground, the date for harvest has been set. And that is what is possible for you. That's what is possible for me. If we understand the same principle at our levels, the outcomes of life will become that determinate. Life doesn't happen to them. Things don't happen, and then they are wondering, how come the harvest was not good? No, they have gone beyond that stage. Recall what I said at some point, that when you have a good understanding of the parable of the sower, it includes knowing the things that you must prevent from happening so that it doesn't tamper with your expected harvest or returns. So it is all encompassing. But what we lack is an understanding. What we lack is not, what many have been, have swept, have frustrated us is our nonchalant disposition towards it. It's the thinking that they are just religious principles, they are just, stories, mere stories, that Jesus told. Yet, we walk through life that is controlled by these principles, that responds to those who engage these principles. And we are getting into difficulty after difficulty. We are faltering and failing, step after step. Yet, we also have access to the parables and therefore to the principles. So parables are given to us to live a supernatural life. They are given to us to live a supernatural life. And what does it really entail? What it entailed, I was saying before, is really not far-fetched. If you want, it is a combination of two things. Understanding the parable, the principle that is embedded in the parable is hidden. Jesus said it himself. Said, yes, it is true that I've used stories to make it easier for you to relate to, but it's not easy to unlock the secrets therein. And you know what the Bible tells us. It said, it is to the glory of God to hide certain things, but the honor of men to unveil them, to discover them. So we have a responsibility to look into the principles, look for the things that have been hidden there, and to bring them out. And one of the parables, what Jesus made that point also. The parable of the great pearl. He said, you have a man, who was searching for things. He discovered a great pearl. You know what he did? He went and sold every other thing that he had. He discarded every understanding that he had about how life works and held on firmly to this pearl of great value. If you understand these principles that have been hidden in the parables, if you uncover them, they are great pearls. You will discard many of the things that you have subjected yourself to. You will discard the trial and error approaches that you have been using. You will hold on to proven principles guaranteed to deliver clear results. And you'll see how your life will change. The Bible says, it said, buy the truth and never sell it. And I say, if there's one asset you need to have, it is truth. Truth is the only asset that you acquire, but you must never sell. It must always be part of your portfolio. Why? Because it will preserve and sustain the entire portfolio. And we discussed managing investments. You have seen the insights that came from just those discussions. And yet, we are just playing here. In these 10 days is a mini adventure. It is just to try and convince you that you should pay attention, commit to a study of parables. If it is the only thing you do this year, it will change your life forever. Except you are saying that Jesus just spoke the parables for fun. And I guarantee you, he didn't speak them for fun. If you and I refuse to take advantage, we will be like the people that he entered Jerusalem. He looked at the city and he lamented over the city that if only these people knew who had visited them, they won't subject themselves to the hardship that is going to come upon them. If only we knew what has been hidden in these parables for us to go and search and unveil and take advantage of. we will spare ourselves a lot of headache, a lot of lamentation, a lot of faltering and failing. That's the truth. Why? Because when you key into it, you understand the principles and you take steps executing them by faith. That is, you believe that these things are true, they work. If not because of I said so, and I'm not the one saying so, they are not my parables, because of the person that said it. Jesus himself said it. He said, you have to believe in what I have said. He said, but just in case, even if you don't believe in what I have said, believe in the results that they have produced. You can see the results. Believe in the results. Let that be the motivation for you to also act. Why was he emphasizing that? He was emphasizing that because if they don't believe, they can't enjoy the principles. It won't work for them. It only works for people who believe. Because if you don't believe, even if you act out the principles, you won't do it with confidence. You won't do it with conviction. You are not going, the quality of your execution will be weak and the results will not come. And therefore, you will be thinking or suggesting that maybe the parables are not effective or they are not true. But you are the one who is not obeying the process. I earlier on, while the mic was still on, and I hope that everybody is okay right now. While the mic was still on, now I referred to the scripture in Hebrews 4 and verse 2, I believe it is, or verse 4, where it said, look, the words that were spoken to us is the same words that were spoken to them. What they taught us, the principles they taught us, is the same principle that they taught to another set of people. He said, but it didn't profit them. That is, they could not extract profit from what they had, not being mixed with faith in them who had it. Meaning, you and I can hear these parables. You and I can even get to the point that we understand these principles, the principles contained in them. But until it's only the person that executes, takes action based on faith, based on conviction, confident about the veracity of what he or she has learned, has taken delivery on, that will get the result. It's a shame. He said, we had the same things. We were taught the same things. We had the same understanding of the principles that we were taught that they had. But we got profit from these principles. They didn't get profit from the principles. When we observed the difference between us, it was because we applied faith. They didn't apply faith. They didn't believe, even though they understood. They didn't take action on the basis of faith. So the results you get when you put these things to use, you get them in the natural, but you get them through spiritual living. To abide by these principles in faith makes you live supernatural in the world which is natural. He said, Jesus said about his people, I think it's John 17, when he said, when he was asking that God should protect the people, he said, they are in the world, but they are not of the world. So they live in the natural sphere, but they operate spiritual principles. They live in as it were, on a supernatural frequency, even though they are on the earth. That's why they were so powerful. That's why they were so domineering. That's why they feared nothing. That's why there was no situation coming that they were afraid of. That's why they could speak with boldness, because they had been prepared for life based on the principles. From the moment that Jesus spoke the first parable and they came to him to say, sir, explain this parable to us, he told them, he put them on notice. When he said, if you don't understand this parable, how will you understand the other parables? He was putting them on notice. This is the first one I'm going to speak. And I'm going to be using these parables all through your journey with me. You better pay attention to them. You better pay attention to them. So whatever those guys became as a result of their tutelage under him, they were made by the teachings from the parables. In fact, so much so that after they had left, when the so-called Pharisees saw them, they were amazed at them. They said, aren't these the same illiterate guys? We've known them, these guys, we know they are illiterate men, fishermen. But they were no longer operating at the realm of fishermen. They were now operating at the realm of fishers of men. There are two different realms. One is supernatural living. The other is just catching fish. And they realized, said, oh, they had been with Jesus. They had been, Acts chapter 4, you find it there. They realized that their association with a man who taught them by parables, who immersed the principles of parables in them, who built faith in them and told them. In John chapter 1 and verse 12, he said, he came to his own did not receive him, but to as many as received him, to them he gave what? Power to become the sons of God. So it took receiving him, receiving his teachings, believing in them, for them to take delivery of the power that transforms. Because they become, said to become, they weren't sons of God before. They became sons of God. And it took power to make that transformation happen. That power came from his teachings. And he ended that verse by saying, even to them that believed on his name. And it's important that we address this so that you don't look at these parables as stories, so that you bring the right attitude to these parables, so that you know that they are not ordinary words, so that you know that whatever you discover in them, it's important that you put them to use by faith. By faith. By faith. By faith. Let me add this so I can move away from this. If you look at it, I think it's Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 6. He said, without faith, it is impossible, for anyone to please God. He said, whoever comes to him. Now, this is what faith is. Whoever comes to him must believe that he is, and he's a rewarder of them who diligently seek him. So it is you acknowledging that these parables were spoken by him, the principles that you've come to understand out of these parables, that they are true because of who spoke them, not because of me. All right? And that when you act on that, those principles will work for you accordingly. They will deliver to you the benefits that they promised. If you can do that, for every insight you gain in your study of these parables, you operate your life on a different trajectory. Your life has to change. It can't be business as usual. You will experience transformation. It will be the beginning of growth. And as you do it, you sustain growth for as long as you are on this earth. So yes, you are in the sphere, natural sphere, but you are operating on the basis of supernatural laws, on the basis of spiritual principles which govern what happens on the earth. That's how to live supernaturally. I think that was where we got to before I discovered that the volume wasn't quite okay. So I have some confirmation now that everyone can hear, both the VIP and the and the YouTube and Facebook platforms. Thankfully. So I've had to go back and start, so I can compensate everyone. Thank you for, your patience with me. Thank you for staying through, allowing me to, recap and to, to bring this again up to this point. So let's very quickly now look at, a handful of parables, and let me make some points, in addition to what I've said on supernatural living. So we're going to look at some of these parables: the parable of the talent, the parable of the sower, the parable of the 10 virgins, the parable of the lamp, the leaven, the budding fig tree. I hope really that is in that order, and I didn't change it in the course of, knocking these slides together, but bear with me if it is. But let's go. Okay, so now we're here. Using the parable of the sower, I'm saying that it helps you to understand the nature of supernatural living. That supernatural living is following supernatural principles. That is, you live supernaturally when you follow supernatural principles. I think I've made that point. All right. And conviction is crucial to the promise of principles. Conviction is crucial to the promise of principles. So hopefully that will change your perspective about supernatural living. It's not until we shake or vibrate. It's not even until we speak in tongues. You can speak in tongues and not follow the principles. If you don't follow the principles, you won't get the results. That's the truth. Why? Because God is no respecter of persons. The reason God doesn't respect persons, the reason God is not partial, is because he has laid down principles for each one of us to follow. So why should he answer you when you choose to ignore or neglect to follow the principles he has laid down? That's the reason that God cannot be partial, because everything that he wants to give you, you can get by locating the principles that promise them and acting on them. Every benefit under heaven can be secured by principles. Even prayer follows principle. There is principle behind prayer. All right? There is principle behind prayer. If you want to know some of the principles behind prayer, you need to go and study the parable of the persistent widow, the parable of the friend in need. It will teach you what it takes to get answers to prayer. He follows principle. So God can't break the principle. He can't by himself. He is subject to the principles he has laid out. He obeys them by himself. Because if he doesn't obey them, he won't ask us to obey them. And so also when you are with people, stop looking for preferential treatment. Because even with people, without your boss, you want to get something from your boss, there are principles to follow, sir. There are principles to follow, man. They are contained in all these parables. It's because we are not taking interest to uncover them. That's why we can't learn. Look at all the things that we talked about when we were talking about relationship building. It tells you how to manage people, how to relate with people, how to be in the good books of people, how to get what you want from people. But we are, busy complaining My boss doesn't like me. It's so difficult. All of that stuff. Forget it. It's because you don't have control. You don't have a knowledge and command of the principles. When you have command of the principles, you will never complain about things like that anymore. You won't. Why? Because the moment you see some things happening, you know what to do. You know what to do. Activate the principle and see the situation change in your favor. Activate the principle. We have to leave the realm of thinking, that prayer is some magical one. It's not a magical one. Prayer runs on principle like every other thing. Like every other thing. And you also see from the parable of the sower, compelling advantage of supernatural living. Why? Because we said, if you understand the parable of the sower, you know that there were 3 times out of 4 that the effort of the sower produced nothing. That's part of the principle. That if you sow in this place, it will not produce. If you sow in this place, it won't produce. If you sow in thorny ground, it will not produce. The only place where you can hope to get something, and that even can be 30-fold, 60-fold, 90-fold, 100-fold, depending on certain factors, is the good ground. So if you have that knowledge, while people who don't know are still busy doing trial and error, sowing in 4 different places, 3 out of which will never produce anything, you will only plant in good ground. Guess what will happen? If both of you were investing the same amount of money, your own returns will be guaranteed. Theirs, God will help them. First of all, their returns will never be like your own, because in 3 of the places where they sowed, they will lose. They will lose. But notice, both of you invested the same amount. You put all your 100% in good ground. They put only 25% of theirs in good ground. 75% were in 3 different places that will never yield anything. How can their results be like yours? You see the difference that supernatural living makes. That's the difference. It's not because you prayed. And it's not to say that prayer is not important. But there is no way prayer will ever, forever replace the principles. There is no way prayer will deliver to you what the principles will not deliver to you. Mercy can avail for you after you have done the needful. After you have done the needful. Why? Because God will not overlook his principles. He doesn't operate like that. He's not that biased. He can refer you if you are struggling and you are confused and you are, ignorant, refer you to the principles. Go and learn the principles. This is what you need to do. That will be the answer to your prayer. When you do it, you get the result. So I said, look at the last word there. Violating the principles. When you know the principle and you violate them, then you have brought yourself from the supernatural realm to the natural level. If you violate principle, that means you are taking yourself out of the way, out of how things work. And you are saying you are looking for another way. Then God help you. Many of us, that's where we are currently. More out of ignorance than any other thing. And I say that with all due respect, please. I mean no disrespect by saying that. I mean no disrespect whatsoever. I'm just trying to convey a point. All right. If we have not been, if we have not been living according to some of the things we're hearing now, of course, whether by neglect or by omission, we have been violating the principles. You know what they say? Ignorance of the law is not an excuse. That's a separate thing entirely. You can ask for mercy for that. But the first is that, you have not been doing the right thing. And when you are not operating these principles, you have brought yourself down from a supernatural lifestyle to a natural lifestyle. All right. We can say a number of those things from the parable of the sower. Again, I'm having to just summarize essentially. Now, look at the parable of the talent. Supernatural living is building character. Supernatural living is about character development. It's about character development. If you look at the whole walk in the faith, as a Christian, for example, the ultimate is for you to come to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ. That is the character of Christ. What is called the fruit of the Spirit is a description of the character of Christ, the character of God. That's the ultimate. It's not the miracles and whatever. No. And we saw when we x-rayed the parables and how they help us to build character, we saw the cornerstone nature of character. We saw the cornerstone nature of character. That character is the antidote to failure in many lives. Is the antidote to our inability to get results. Even if you have the best technical skills, we saw that when you lack character, it will show in the quality of your results. It will show. And we use, among others, the parable of the talent. We use the parable of the talent. That character is the key to supernatural living. It's the key. It elevates your realm of operation when you build character. That man said, "Well done, good and faithful servants." Describing their character, showing us that it is the character that helped them to produce the results that we got. The character is the ultimate expectation we have, that God has of us. That's why you may have read in the Bible a place where some people went to Jesus. Jesus said, "And I will say to you that day, depart from me, you workers of iniquity, I don't know you." And they said, "But we cast out demons in your name." It's true. He said, "It's true you cast out demons in my name. But, the miracles are a means to an end. They are not an end in itself." He said, "Depart from me, I don't know you." That means you don't resemble me. I can't see my character in you. That's the ultimate. If you would look, for example, at Ephesians 4, verses 11 to 13, what did he say? He gave them prophets, apostles, and all of that for the perfecting of the saints, for the work of the ministry, until you come to the perfect man, to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ. The ultimate in this work, that supernatural level, is character. A strong character. A strong character. And that's what it takes. You need to remove the old man and to adorn the new man. His character is nothing, let's leave this superficial stuff. His character. If you look at X-ray, what is the fruit of the Spirit? And the behavioral attributes and the virtues. Love, patience, peace, goodness, what? Meekness, faithfulness, kindness. What is, are those not standard behavioral attributes? But they are not found in everybody. And they are not easy to cultivate in just anybody. It takes work. You have to work them into yourself. And the more you build these attributes, the more you are empowered to live out these principles as a supernatural lifestyle. We get that also from the parable of the talent. Okay? Just again, using each of these parables just to. Now look at the parable of the persistent widow. I just told you that you can study that parable to get insights into prayer and how to understand the fact that prayer follows principle and to know how to effectively take advantage of that privilege. But the parable of the persistent widow is also about asking, the power of asking. I call it a supernatural act of asking, because all that woman went to do was to locate a judge and to go and ask the judge for what she wanted, what was due to her. You and I can look at it as a natural phenomenon, but she was activating a spiritual law. A spiritual law. And you saw that by refusing to give up, we talked about how that is a reflection of character, of strong character. That gesture of asking delivered into her hands what she wanted. I teach a series on asking. You want to asking is a leverage that if you have it in life, it will change your life. I have a series for anyone who may be interested. It's called the Ask to Win Challenge. Maybe I will showcase a link to it for if you are interested. The Ask to Win Challenge is a 5-day challenge where I show you how to take advantage of that 3-letter word to change your life. We understand there is nothing that we have that we did not receive. Isn't that what the Bible says? There is nothing that we have that we have not received. How do you receive anything? By asking. By asking. He said, ask and you will what? Receive. He said, the reason you don't receive is because you don't ask. He said, and some people ask and they still don't receive because they ask for the wrong reasons. But the privilege to ask was not given so that God will ever say no. It is meant to always give you what you want. If you know the power of it and you know the principle that govern it, so you don't ask amiss, among other things. This woman understood the principle behind asking and is greatly powerful. But you see also in that parable that praying will deliver more than asking. Both of them follow the same principle. But why will one deliver more? Why? Because praying is essentially to God, it's not to man. All right? And God was saying, after Jesus gave that parable, Jesus was saying, he said, if you as earthly fathers, if you won't give your child a snake when they ask for bread or egg or fish, he said, what about me? I will give you something far greater. He said, how much more will I give you the Holy Spirit to them that ask? You understand? So you begin to understand these things. Yeah. And all these are deductions from parables. All these are deductions. One of the things that you get also from this is that when you rely on your network, because we are fond of this statement, this quote that is wrong, that your people will say your net worth is your network, or your network is your net worth. Nothing can be further from the truth. If you accept it, you put yourself in the natural. That means you are told to depend on the network of people, your connections, your relationships, as your basis to add value to your life. Nothing can be further from the truth. We should stop it. It is holding you back if you are depending on people in order to increase your value. It is holding you back. Why? Because the complement to the parable of the persistent widow is the parable of the friend in need. It's almost the same thing. There was a friend, that one talks about a friend who had a friend visiting. Somebody had a friend visiting. The friend came at midnight and he didn't have anything to offer the friend. So he went to another friend. He went to a neighbor. He went to, a close pal to borrow loaves of bread. And what happened there? He knocked the door, says, "Who is that?" And he said, "Oh, it's me, your good friend. I've come. I have a friend who has come. I need some bread so I can give my friend. He came late. I don't have nothing. Please loan me 3 loaves or so, so that I can give him something to eat." And the man started giving him excuses. "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm already in bed. My children are with me. I can't stand up now." But they were close. That's your so-called relationship. That's your so-called network. Started giving all kinds of excuses. But this guy, just like the persistent widow, never gave up. He didn't give up. He continued there to the point that the man had to come. In fact, what Jesus then said is that, "Do you see that man?" He said, "That man will not give up." He said he's going to continue knocking. And his friend will have to stand up. Not because he's his friend, but because the man refuses to give up. His importunity. All right? Which means that your relationship can fail you. That the so-called people you are depending on as your network, when the time comes that you need them, they will fail. We looked at the parable of the great banquet or the marriage feast a couple of days ago. We saw a man who was celebrating the wedding of his son, and he called all his close pals. He called his network. When the day came, the network did not show up. He had to start sending his servants to go and, call them at home. I mean, you invite people to your banquet, your child's wedding, and you are still having to send people to their houses to go and call them to come and attend. And even when the servants went to their houses, they started giving excuses. They say, "Oh, sorry, let me quickly go to my farm. Sorry, let me check my wife." All kinds of excuses. That's your so-called network. Because when the time comes for them to show up for you, they fail. The arm of flesh fails. So what's this talk? But they said importunity is more powerful than network. Importunity is operating at the level of the spiritual. When you leave yourself in the hands of your network, you are operating at the level of the natural. So you better learn how to ask. And to ask in a way that whether it is a judge who does not have respect for God that you are asking, he will still give you what you're asking. If he doesn't give you for God's sake, he will give you because of his own sake. Because that's what the judge said about that widow. He said, "For my sake, because this woman will weary me the way she's asking, let me just give her what she wants." But she wasn't asking for anything corrupt. She was asking for what was due to her. And she was asking somebody in whose power it was to deliver fairness, judgment, or justice to her. These are some of the principles. And that woman knew what to do. When you know what to do, you operate on the level of the supernatural. Jesus was faced with facing 5,000. His people didn't know how that was going to happen. It was just impossible. But John chapter 6, verse 6 tells us, but he himself knew what he would do. He was not operating at their level. All of them were on the ground. All of them were in the natural. But somebody was operating spiritual principles. The other were still looking around, looking for who can help them. They They sat in the natural space trying to use natural principles, to handle natural situations. When they had the privilege of somebody who was in control of the spiritual principles that will dominate natural environment any day, anytime. And that was the same man who spoke the principles. He himself knew what he would do. If you can get to the same level, that's why he spoke those principles, so that you also can get to the point where you know what to do. Let me speak quickly on the imperative of constant visibility. And I use the parable of the lamp here. What am I saying? Supernatural living is a command. What does this parable tells us? He said, there is no one who lights a candle and puts it, or lights a bushel and puts it under. Did he say under a bushel or something? You don't light a lamp and put it, under the and hide it. All right, you don't hide it, and you and I are not supposed to hide if we're operating spiritual principles. Why? He said, you put the lamp up so that everyone can see it, but not so that you can pose with it, not so that you can, it's not for self-aggrandizement. It is so that it can benefit the lives of others. All right. So when you operate these principles, you are going to, you become visible for people to observe. They see how you live. They see how you conduct. They see how you think. They see the results that you get. They are attracted to you so that they can learn from you, so that they can benefit from you. So your light can help others to grow as well. That's the kind of life that you are called to live. That's part of the supernatural principles that guide the operations of life. People who live to themselves cut short their lives, like the rich fool. Because when he operated the supernatural principle of sowing and reaping, he had a bountiful harvest. In fact, he had a harvest that was more than what he was expecting. But what did he do? He only thought about himself. He said, I will knock down my current storage. I will build new barns, bigger barns, so that I can keep all of this abundance. For yourself alone, what about the people who worked in your farm? Didn't they contribute to the abundance? You are not thinking of anybody. The same thing with the other rich guy who ran to Jesus and said, Sir, what do I do so that I can secure eternal life? He was wealthy, but he was not fulfilled. He knew that money didn't answer everything after all. He needed something, an experience that money could not buy. Because if his money could have bought the fulfillment, he won't come running to Jesus for eternal life. He would have bought it. He was rich enough. And Jesus then told him, he said, okay, well, this is what you need to do. There is one thing you lack. He said, go and sell your property and distribute it to those who don't have, and take your cross and come and follow me. And the man was thinking that Jesus wanted to make him poor. He didn't know that he was revealing a secret to him, supernatural living. He didn't know that he was teaching him the law of sowing and reaping, the principle of the parable of the sower. And the man went away sorrowful. You see, that's how some people, when you try to explain these principles, they stay at the level of religion and think that it doesn't affect, it can't help, all of that. And they miss out on it. And they still continue to grapple with challenges in life. The man went away sorrowful. He thought that what they were telling him, that the man was trying to play games on him. But he was the loser. He won't bring himself to operate. You went to somebody that you believe had what you wanted. He's widely acknowledged. You ran to him, you said, Master. You acknowledge that he knew he had the key to what you wanted, to what you were missing. The man confirmed you lack one thing. What you lack is simple. You lack the principle. You don't know the principle of seed time of and harvest. You have not read the parable of the sower. You don't have that understanding. Now let me tell you what it is. Leave this your wealth, sow it as a seed, and then nurture it. Follow me. Nurture it and see whether you won't have a harvest. And thankfully, the followers of Jesus were around. They observed what was going on. So they wanted clarification. When the man left, they then asked their master, sir, so we have left everything. We have already sown. We have paid the price. We have sown our own seed. What are we going to get, sir? And he told them, anyone who has left mother, father, and everything for my sake and for the kingdom's sake, he will have in this lifetime, not, he said, he will have 100-fold return. And he will also have that eternal life. So look at what that man missed. Was he going to lose everything that he gave? That he was asked to go and give the poor? No. He was asked to go and sow. Jesus was trying to express, bring him into the realm of supernatural living so that he can obey certain principles and he will get what he wanted. What Jesus was saying is that the reason you are still lacking, although you have money, you are still lacking in what is more important than money, is because you have not located the principle that will put it in your hands. Let me show you the principle. If you can follow the principle, that thing will be in your hands. That thing will be in your hands. So you see the issue of visibility. Don't hide. All right? Don't seek to cover your results. People will see it. But don't pose. Don't become proud. All right? It's important they see it so that they also can be shown the way. So that together you can also be an instrument for lifting other people up. It's a powerful supernatural principle. And of course, that way, again, you are also sowing seed. Because the more people you lift up, the more that will be added to you. The more people you lift up, the more that will be added to you. The more you expose a lamp on the table, the more people will see. And the more they can take the right action. Isn't it? And the less the challenges you have to deal with, the less the number of people you have to be afraid of because they are still abiding in darkness. See, this is how we undermine ourselves. I need to wrap up now. I think I may have more than made up for the initial, gaffe. But, all right. Supernatural living is also infectious. So an extension of what I've just said. If you look at the parable of the leaven, we're told that the woman mixes leaven or yeast into a dough. And before you knew it, the yeast affected the whole dough. All right. And that's to tell you that supernatural living, it affects and it infects. Okay. You have seen the lamp dimension. It's infectious. It's infectious. All right. When you hang around people and you live according to these principles, they are bound to be infected by those principles. They are bound to want to copy you. You begin to see people do the things, learn from you, do the same things, begin to get results like you are getting. Okay. So it's great for making maximum impact. Why? Because you have results to show. Because you are there for everyone to see. Okay. It fosters control and dominion because the leaven takes over when it enters the dough. It rules ultimately, does so gradually, but it ends up dominating the dough. All right. That's the life of the one who operates spiritual principles. And the more principles you subscribe to, the greater the growth that you would, experience. The more principles others open themselves to embrace, the greater the growth that they would express as well. Because the more you open yourself as dough, the more yeast enters into dough, the greater the effect, the greater, the swelling of the dough. Okay? And but it's important, the same way that that supernatural living is like yeast. All right, you also have to guard against allowing yeast, another kind of yeast, to get into your life. All right, because it can undermine your life. Um, that's why the Bible tells us, guard your heart with all diligence, because out of it are all the outcomes that you experience in life. All right. And you see a parable, the parable of the heart of man. He said, look, what creates problem for a man is not what the man eats. It is what comes out of the mouth of the man, which is coming from the heart of the man. That's why you must guard what gets into the heart, because what comes out of the mouth is what enters the heart. And we have talked about the issues of association using different principles earlier in the week. So I thought it was important to use that also to draw attention to that dimension. Let me also, maybe this might be the parable of the talents, of the 10 virgins. And here I want to speak on the imperative of living ready. The imperative of living ready. What does that mean? What it means is this. You see, living prepared is living supernaturally. Because we said these parables teach you how to live a supernatural life. What was the problem with the virgins, in that parable? There were 10 virgins who were wise. They lived ready to take advantage of opportunities. The foolish ones were living their lives carelessly. So even for opportunities that they knew were coming, they couldn't take advantage of them because of careless living. All right? Because of careless living. But when you live supernaturally, when you are mindful of principles in everything that you do, when you are guided by the things that you have learned, by these spiritual laws, you live by them perpetually. You live ready to handle situations because you are in command of the principles that govern situations. And so you position yourself, especially for known opportunities. And you do away with sentiments. Because one of the things we learned from that principle is that the prepared ones are not sentimental. What do we mean? When they announce that, oh, the bridegroom is now coming because he was late, then everybody quickly stood up, they set their lamps, and then the foolish one discovered that they had run out of oil, and they went to beg the ones that still had, the wise ones. Sentiment, expecting that the wise ones will give them oil. But the guys were not sentimental. They said, sorry, you have to go and buy your own oil. Some of us may think they were wicked. They were not wicked. He said, because if we give you this, our oil now, it is true that they have announced that the man is coming. What if the man doesn't show up so quickly? We don't want to run out of oil. We came prepared. You didn't come prepared, so you should bear the consequences of your lack of preparation. Next time you will learn, to be prepared. That's why when you look at the life of Jesus, please remind me, there is no one record of him being caught unawares or being caught by surprise. No. He was always ready to handle any situation. There is no situation that came that I said, okay, wait, let me go and pray. Wait, let me go and talk to God. Let me ask for the direction. No, he was always ready. He had command of the principles. That's why many times that situations occur, how did we hear the principles? He spoke principles in response to situations. They were meant to be way out of certain situations in which the people found themselves, to help them, saying that whenever you observe this kind of situations, these are the principles to use so that you can remain in command. Being business-like always, all right, is supernatural living. That's what we learn. The wise ones were business-like. So we need to take charge and take control, of our lives. And that's what supernatural living does for you. All right, let me, okay, I think I'm going to close with this. Life is in stages, growth is in phases. The point I want to emphasize here is this. The fact that you are living supernaturally does not mean that you are going to jump one stage of life. It doesn't matter. No matter, look, Jesus did not suddenly begin to do what he was doing. He didn't start his ministry, for example, until he was 30 years old. What was he doing up to then? Because life is in stages, growth is in phases. When you look at that parable of the budding fig tree, he said the man planted the seed. He said what came out first? The ears came out. The blade came out. All right. Then the ear came out. Then the full corn in the ear. Growth was in phases, marking different stages of the life of that crop, beginning with the seed. If you want to jump a stage, you will never get to the last stage. So, supernatural living does not mean that you are going to skip stages. Does not mean that you should look forward to getting double promotion. There is nothing like that. It means obeying process, recognizing that supernatural life entails a process and you must comply. Line yourself up with the dictates of the process. Otherwise, you will bungle the supernatural lifestyle. And every time you do that, you bring yourself down to the natural. And in the natural, anything can happen to you. Anything can take control of you. Anything can dictate the outcomes of your life. But that's not the way it is in the supernatural. Ladies and gentlemen, I think with those few points, I hope I have convinced you, not confused you, as they say in the debate. Okay, it looks like I have a final word. Life will always show you two kinds of people. Life will always show you two kinds of people. That's part of the supernatural. That's supernatural living as well. Life will always show you two kinds of people. And you can see that in quite a number of the parables. The parables of the two sons. One was obedient, one was disobedient. The parable of the wise and the foolish. The parable of the faithful and the unfaithful servants. The parable of the prodigal and the good son. We often call it the parable of the prodigal son, but there were two sons there. Only one was prodigal, the other one was not prodigal. All right. And both of them featured prominently, all right, in that parable. The parable of the sheep and the goats, Matthew 25, all right, 31 to, I believe, 44 or so. Parable of the wise and the foolish virgins. We just talked about that. Parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector. Parable of the faithful and the lazy servants. That's the parable of the 10 talents. Okay. So life, even supernatural, will always show you or throw up two kinds of people. Now, it's your opportunity to seize. It's your choice to make on which side you end up. It's your action to take. Remember, executing in faith. It's your achievement to celebrate when the results come. It's your reward to enjoy. But it could be your neglect to regret. If you neglect them, regret is inevitable. Your challenge to exceed. Because once you get results, that means you have established a benchmark. You have to work to improve on that. That's why God said to them, be fruitful. And then go ahead to multiply. And then replenish. And then subdue. You keep growing until you get to the level of dominion. Ladies and gentlemen, the way we have done in the last, from all that we have discussed, you can see there are risks associated with supernatural living. So what risks from all that you have listened to can undermine your supernatural development? And there are boosters as well. What factors can you leverage, all right, to power your supernatural development aspirations? Think about that. Now you can apply this to your own personal situation. What issues are hindering you, or limiting your supernatural ability and experience? If you can list them and you can identify some of the parables that we've discussed, there may be any other parable that you are familiar with, it will help you to begin to think through how to overcome those challenges. And that's it for today on our discussion, supernatural living. I want to, again remind anyone that all of these are preparatory to the Profit from Parables Bootcamp, which will be starting by the grace of God in August. And there, if you have gained anything here, know that whatever you are hearing is a tip of the iceberg. What we have done here is that we have examined for each of the priority areas so that I can show you, I can expose, the relevance of these parables to, each of those priority areas of your life, of my life, to get you excited, to motivate you, to challenge you as well, to undertake an adventure into the parables of Jesus. Change your life. All right? Empower yourself. Put these things to work. Prove them and see, what they will do, how they will catapult you, all right, to a different frequency. Okay? And that will be a more substantive program. It's called the Profit from Parables Bootcamp. You see, this one is Parables for Profit. It's like I'm showcasing them to you, all right, and saying, come with me. Let's undertake this adventure. That one is focusing on how do you extract profit. Notice what I said in Hebrews 4 verse 2. It said, it didn't profit them because they didn't mix it by faith. That means in the prior principles, you can extract profit for your life. And that's what this bootcamp is inviting you to come and do. You can scan that code, the QR code that is shown. It will take you to a website where you can read the details of what the program would entail, and you can secure your seat. Secure your seat, invite your friends, let people come with you on this journey. We're going to take each parable one by one. We're going to break them down. We're going to show how to apply them in the 9 areas as much as possible. We're going to challenge ourselves to internalize, all right, those lessons and to come up clearly with a new way of life for ourselves that is anchored to these principles. Okay, and you come through from that boot camp with an experience such as you have never had. It's a one in a lifetime adventure. I know more than 95% of people I've spoken to, just asking them, have you ever gone through the parables of Jesus? Not just to listen to stories, all right, but to dig deep and try to get to the root of them and appropriate them for your life. I haven't found many people. I haven't found, many people who have taken that upon themselves to do. But you have the opportunity here, for yourself and for your loved ones, and please, I encourage you to take this step and take advantage of it. So scan the code and, book your place in the boot camp. So once again, I just leave the code for you for a bit. I want to thank you for your patience. Thank you for joining me this evening. And I look forward to seeing you at tomorrow's closing session. And, you have enough time to prepare for the boot camp. The whole of July, you can prepare for it, but please make sure you don't miss it. Give yourself a special gift this year. Let it be this boot camp. Come back, and appreciate God for the privilege to go through it. Thank you once again. Enjoy the rest of your night. God bless you. Bye-bye.